I think.
Well, good evening. We've got somebody. I don't know who it is. I guess we will soon see. Oh, hey, Becky. How are you? Sorry there was no countdown this evening. I don't know. Something got all goofy with it when they upgraded this streaming software. So I don't know. I got to figure it all out again. So, we got 3 people. And I apologize for some weird reason it said that the live was tomorrow night. When I must have scheduled it, I must have had it all messed up from last week. So, hey, Robin. That is wonderful. Corey, Becky, Robin. Next week, everybody's going to get to meet Robin. So that will be fun. And it'll be the first time I get to meet him outside of like in real person besides Facebook. So bear with me if I have a crappy voice every once in a while. Again, I'm still getting over whatever this thing is. So I don't know if I like my new lights. I bought 2 light panels. I'm still not terribly happy, but it's better than what it has been, I think. So I have this vision in my head. Oh, Becky says good timing. Just got home from taking softball photos. Hopefully that went well. But we'll see how many we get on here. So, you know what I should have done was I should have had my book with me tonight, but I guess I don't. It's on the truck. Well, that's where she'll stay. So. Yeah, I got to work on my lighting. I keep looking this in the background, and I want the blue to be all the way across from my LED lights, but I should have got the light panels that had barn doors on it so I could control the light a little more. But I don't know if I terribly like this setup, but tweak, I guess. So, we'll get started here momentarily. We always have people that pop in, so I think I'm going to change my background too. I always like to change crap up in my office. And as you can probably tell, I moved my printer, and then that keyboard is driving me in the back, driving me up the wall. But no, I've been wanting a sign for my. Well, I've had the sign back here, the red one, but I've been wanting one of my new logo for a really long time. But the god awful things are expensive. But I managed to get onto Etsy today or last week. I don't know. It's all backwards. And I don't know. This dude made me this sign. It's all like laser cut. It's super cool. So I'll have to hang that up next week, hopefully, or this week before it falls over. But I'm going to go and change something real quick. Oh, well, I tried to mirror the camera, but we'll leave it as is before I mess it all up. So, well, we got 6 people. We always get a few that pop on. So, you know what? We might as well get to rolling on this wonderful Thursday evening. I want to think it was Friday because that's what I've been doing for the last month. But all my classes with Paul's photo has wrapped up. So that is always, I don't know. It's fun to get it wrapped up after an entire month, but then it, like, I don't know what to do with myself after I don't have anything to do with teaching every Thursday night. So, but all in due time, I teach it 4 times a year. So ish. So I got at least 2 more times this year. So, you know what? We will get to rolling here. And as always, if people have got questions, just throw them over. So let me pop on, let's do this. So hopefully everybody will be able to see this. If not, I'll talk as always, right? So from lens to page, crafting your first self-published photo book. Not that I'm any expert on this matter, but it's one of those things that I think everybody should do it once. Hey, Paul is on here. So yeah, we got Paul, Becky, Robin, Corey, and there's a few others floating around out there, but I don't know who it is. But yeah, I mean, a photo book, right? I mean, there's a million different ways you can do this. That's the thing. It's just like photography. We can do it a million different ways, and we all have our own tastes and how we want to do it. But well, I mean, you could do it a million times if you want, Corey. Corey just asked the question, well, why do we do it once for a photo book? Right, I've done it twice now. I've done my published one with my publisher, and then I've done my own. And I'll kind of go through the pros and cons of that. So this evening, just a little bit. I won't get too heavy-handed in the publishing side, because that, and now that it's useless information to people, but it's kind of a not as common, right? I mean, you can still do it. So let's get through here. So a picture is worth 1,000 words. A fine art print is so much more. I am the biggest proponent of printing your stuff. I talk in landscape, landscape technique with Paul's photo about the creative circle, and where we envision a photo, and then we take what we know and knowledge from our photographer's toolbox, and then we put it into our camera, and then we click it, and then it goes to one of two places, the interwebs or hard drive, right? So I think printing your work is like the complete, like, it's not really a photograph, right, till it's printed. But for me, I mean, we all know it's not like we don't only have so much wall space, right? So I like this quote because it kind of leads into that whole world and realm of a book, right? Because we can put so much content into a book or some type of thing. So I'll get into more of that a little bit later when I talk about flow and design and all that good stuff. But if you really think about it, I mean, right, it's whether it's some physical thing, right? It can be doesn't have to be a book. It can be a print. I mean, I don't have a print up there anymore. I got a print over there. And then I've got that big kick-ass banner when I spoke at a Professional Photographers of Iowa a few years ago. Hangs on the back of my office door, and there's 5 photos on there, minus my headshot, that they're printed, right? So I still get to see them, and those are like 11 by 14 size on that banner. So anytime you can print something, I think it just creates that whole circle, and it's just like super awesome when you get to see something, and especially when you go through the whole process of whether you print yourself or you print through a lab or you do a book. So we will hop into the old book stuff now. I don't know how long this will take. I kind of tweaked it over yesterday and today, added some stuff, got rid of some stuff. But there is Connie. But I'll go through tonight that kind of stuff, the book thing, how I kind of, my thought process. So this one will be mostly based around the Route 66 book, just because tonight is more about self-publishing versus, let me grab it. I could use it as an example. Then, the book through the publisher, right? But it's one of those things that this project here is not exactly what I wanted it to be in the end. But what I will say is it helped me on the self-publishing side. And we'll go through a little bit of pros and cons of both of those here in a minute. So let's do that. So self-publishing. Well, if you're trying to figure out, there's two ways of really publishing. There's self-publishing, and then there's traditional publishing, right? Well, traditional publishing is a little bit harder, right? Because, this one is the series America Through Time. It's through, why can't I think of the name? Jeez. Font Hill Media. That's who contacted me, right? They reached out to me. So, then we went through the process of signing a contract and having deadlines and things like that. And lots of, for the most part, a lot of support. So I didn't have to design the cover. I didn't have to design the spine or the back. I didn't have to lay out any of this stuff, right? They did it for me. I had to just produce the content. Super easy for the most part in the grand scheme of things. Very overwhelming at the same time. Now, self-publishing is a lot easier. There's no deadlines. There's no contracts. And I'll go through a few things here in a minute. Right now, we might as well. So, right, there's pros and cons to everything, right? There was pros to my Iowa book. There's cons to this book. There's pros to my self-published book, and there's cons to my self-published, right? So self-publishing really in the grand scheme of things is you or I are doing the whole thing from idea to print, right? And that's a lot of work. I felt like my Route 66 books came together pretty fast and pretty easy. just due to the fact that I had kind of, even before I went on the trip, I was kind of tinkering on the idea of a book. I'm one of those, as my mind kind of keeps going back to the same thing over and over and over, I'll probably do it. Um, so, I keep thinking, let's do YouTube videos. Not there yet, but that's been on my list for like 2 years. Maybe I'll do that, right? It's things like that. And I just keep coming back to, and I'll do it and do it and do it eventually. I just have to do it. But with self-publishing, it's a lot more work. Now, the pros to this whole thing is it's a very unique opportunity to maintain total creative control. So, and how I want the direction to go with the book and how I want the flow, the feel, all that stuff. So, I wish I would have gone to the truck and got my book, but oh well. So, in my Iowa book, this is typical layout. It was 1 to 2 photos per page. It's your typical standard book size. I was held to a constraint of 96 pages. Like this one, there's 4. It's 2 and 2, right? So it's 2 per page, kind of thing. Now, I didn't have control over that. They had the layout. They did the layout. Now I could switch things around. But when I think of a photo book, I like 1 picture per page, right? I want to focus on 1 photograph and then the one on the next page and so on and so forth. You don't really get that with that book because I think it was roughly about 144 images. And the more pages we add, the cost goes up. So it makes sense to why they're adding multiple photographs. And obviously, these have captions. My Route 66 book does not have captions. Maybe good, maybe bad. I don't know. I was trying to go with my Route 66 book on more of a kind of fine art feel, but more in a sense where it's just very intimate of a book. It's 1 photo per page, and the picture to the right, which I'll talk about here in a little bit, matches, or it's themed to kind of go with the flow. So the pro to that self-publishing is that super unique opportunity to you to do everything. That's good and bad. It can be very overwhelming, and what do you think of, and how do you plan this project out, and so on and so forth. But I think that's the most awesome thing about self-publishing, is the full total control. I can change it up as much as I want in a day. When I would take my other book and I'd make a change to it, it was a week to 30 days before the change came back. And then sometimes they'd make a mistake, and then I'd have to go back and say, nope, that's the wrong caption for the wrong photo, so on and so forth, and all that kind of stuff. Now, the one thing that with the self-publishing part, it's a little easier to, I think, to share your own work, because you can choose I can choose how many books I want to order on the traditional publishing side, which comes with a cost. But, I can share my work easier because a lot of places, let's talk about print on demand. So if you're not familiar with print on demand, it's pretty much, it's a company that's going to print 1 of something, right? Which obviously your costs are going to be higher because you're not producing at mass quantities and all that businessy stuff and time and money. But you could go, instead of having to sit in like right now, I've got like probably 185 to 90 books out there on a shelf in boxes that I have to have space for, right? That I have to sell or do whatever I wish to with. Where self-publishing, you can do that, or you can find a place, which I'll go through a couple printers in a little bit tonight, talking about where to print things, but you can do self-published. Blurb does it. So you build the digital part. They have their own, like Blurb had their own bookstore online place. And there's a lot of places, even with self-publishing, if you get like the ISBN number, which if you're not familiar with, every book has an ISBN, I think, is a number where it's like your social security number. It only knows that book by that number. So a publisher, or say Barnes and Nobles, can go out and do it. So they might be able to order that book out there, but you have to work at it a little harder to get the book out there at the same time. But it's a lot easier, in my opinion, to share it because you can send a link. People can order. Cost of overhead is much, much, much lower. Now, I'm probably talking to some of this about if you want to sell a book kind of thing, but in the long run, you can do this for a coffee table book, right? You don't need 200 coffee table books for when a guest come over to show them your favorite photos from 2024, right? No, you can use just the one print and done, But the other thing is, again, I kind of talked about this already, but you really can maintain the control through the complete process. Like, you don't have to, you can change it as you wish and then go back and have 50 copies or 50 different designs and that kind of thing, and go from there. Profits. If you're selling books, the self-publishing side is a whole lot better on the profitability side. So I'm open and honest. So my Route 66 book, you buy it, I make $10 off it. That's about what I make off this book. But the only way I could get that profit thing in a sense is I had to order a lot more books to, larger book quantity I ordered of this book, the price came down, right? This sells for $24.99, I think, in the store or when you order it. And if I didn't order 200 books, I would only made $5 a copy versus 10. And that was still $15 a book. That's a lot, I thought, So several years ago, Lynn Area Photo Club, when we had our big thing with the photographer every spring, I remember Moose Peterson came up and we were talking to him at dinner, and I think I remember him saying something along the lines, you don't really make money at books. If you're lucky, you make $5-10. I'm like, okay, that seems really weird. Well, now I've done it. Yeah, you make $5 or $10. So, to me, the book thing is not, obviously I like to make some money because I have bills to pay, right, and things to do in my business. But a book like this is a bucket list, right? I have put in a Route 66 version of this book to my publisher. I'll hear back anywhere between 30 days and a year, probably, to be honest. I'm not really hardcore on pushing that one out like this one. This is a bucket list. This is one and done. So I can call myself an author, right? But that's what that was. Where the self-publishing side, it's just because I like to do it. I really like doing books. It's a process. It's longer. It's a lot more. It's challenging. It's the stuff that I like to do. Now the cons of the whole self-publishing world is you have a lot of less hands-on support. So when I told them to move this wording up or something, I didn't have to do that. I just typed an email, sent it. It came back as a proof, right? They laid it all out. My biggest challenge with the Route 66 book was layout, the software from the company. It was very easy in the end, but I didn't like it. And plenty of things, because sometimes I would change something and it'd shift everything, and then my photos weren't matching up and I had to go back. I'll talk about all this later when I how I lay out a book or laid it out. But you've got a lot lowered chance for publicity too. Not that I'm saying that everybody in America knows about this book. But I have, in theory, a lady I can reach out to who's supposed to help me do book signings. And to be honest, she's worthless as dirt. She responds to one email and then ghosts me. And that's why I'm just doing my book signings myself, because it's easier to reach out and do that than have somebody do it for me. That would be great, but when they're not helpful, they're not helpful. The Route 66 book, I'll probably sell 15 or so and I'll be done. I'm not going to, run 200 books and have them sit here. But this also requires a lot of self-reliance again, and it's all on you. The issues I had with the Route 66 book layout, and I had some weird, I'll talk about a lot of terminology and goofiness in a little bit, and layout like bleed and that. I understand that stuff, but I did the full bleed on it and it still didn't print right. And I thought it was me, but then they said it was them. So momentarily here, I'll have a reprint running in the mail. And once that looks good and I okay it, then I'll start taking orders on the Route 66 book. But you just have to rely on yourself so much and asking the question. And then they talk to you in this verbiage that you may not understand, like, oh, it's full bleed and you got to do this and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, huh? I kind of understand that because I've been through the process a little bit. So it can be very overwhelming in the beginning, as you're got one window over here open, what's full bleed, and you're trying to I couldn't talk to these people on the phone. I'm chatting, and I don't really care to do that, but it's how the world is these days. So the best thing you can do if you decide to do your own book is you've got to have a blueprint for success. Before you even do anything, you'll see there's a word up there at the top, big, bold, and black. It's printer. You got to find somebody to print it first, because I will tell you, you're going to get it all done, and then you go to this printer, and then you find out that the cost is way more than you want. that one single book. Oh, hello, Esther. That one single book, the test run, cost me $76. That's expensive, but it's a hardcover book and it's a nice book, but you know, um, it's hard. I searched all over the place on the internet, and I'll show you the 3 that I came up with this evening and why I went with the one versus the other 2. But when you're thinking about coming up, oh, hello, Barbara. When you come across the whole building your blueprint kind of thing, you got to have so much. There's so much, and this is not even like hardly any of it. There's so much to it, cost I should have put second. It's the very bottom, but obviously you got to have a subject, right? You got to have enough content for the book, with photographs and all that good stuff. You have to start thinking about what size do you want. So my book, I felt like went a little bit quicker than I thought it would, just because I knew I wanted the book to be square. So I shot all the photos in square. I had the look of the image kind of figured out already. So that was half the battle. So I already had my theme and size. I really tinkered with, do I want a hardcover versus a soft cover? I've always wanted a hardcover book. They're not cheap to produce, so I was dead set on that. I was going to go with a dust jacket. If you're not familiar with the dust jacket, that's the little thing that just goes over the outside and it's like paper. It's the thing that always gets ripped up, but it's supposed to keep your book in better condition right on the shelf. Let that thing get scuffed up. But I've also thought about maybe just running the Route 66 book 2 as a soft cover for more affordability kind of thing. You got to have a look at paper poundage. Like, that's a whole thing in itself. Do you want 110 pound paper? Do you want 80 pound? Do you want 70 pound? That kind of thing. And then you'll get all these parameters set. And then you're like, I want a thicker page. You go to 110 pound paper. So if you're talking about poundage of paper, the higher the number, the thicker the paper, is the easiest way to go about it. But what happens is then the book people are like, oh, that's not available in that combo you've created. And you're like, oh, well, poop. So you got to go back and change something else. So there's a lot of give and take. So you have to have that design figured out. And then it comes down, how many pages do you want? The more pages you put in the book, the more damn expensive it gets. I'll tell you that right now. I went from 96 pages in the thought process in the building to like 182. It happened, right? So my book went up a lot higher. I was hoping to sell it for 35 or whatever. Well, that's what it's going to cost me now because I added so much more paper. Hello, Diane. The other thing too is paper types. Do you want semi-gloss? Do you want glossy? Do you want natural? Or do you want the natural uncoated? Or not every printer is going to have all these options, but I like options. For the Route 66 book, I decided to go a matte cover with, satin pages, so they're not glossy or semi-gloss. Then there's cover coatings. You can get the matte soft touch coating, so it feels like that little rubbery kind of feel. And then it's also available in glossy, and it's available in the rubbery kind of soft coating, but scratch resistant. And every time you add something to it, the price goes up a little bit at a time. I'll show you end pages later, but those are the little paper things in the end on your book covers on the inside. I ended up just going with white. I wanted to do like a more deserty tan color or some other colors, but then that jacks the price up again, right? So it's things like that. And in the end, it all comes down to cost. If you're going to make one for $70, great. If you want to try to peddle them a little bit, make a little cash, you got to start looking at the cost a little bit more. But the biggest thing is you got to have some type of blueprint, and just not that this has to be set in stone, but it has to be a rough idea of this is probably what I've looked at the most in my project. So printers, let's talk about printers. So I came across edition 1, like the most highest quality photo book I have ever seen in my life. I actually came across that on YouTube from a guy, Kyle McDougall, I believe. I was trying to get him on the show, but he's in England. We talked back and forth a little bit, but obviously time frames a little bit different. But I believe he did his book, which I didn't realize, called The American Mile. Yeah, American Mile, I think, and it was part of his Route 66 journey. He's the one that kind of got me looking into Route 66 more from a photography aspect. Like, I think they are probably one of the highest quality companies I've seen out there to print, but the book alone for about 20 copies was at per piece unit was about $76. Now, the more I ordered, obviously the price came down significantly, but I don't want 100 of those books lying around, right? So they're pretty expensive. I should have given it 4 money bags, not 3, but um, when you get down to Blurb is where I've always gone to, but I've never been able in any combination on Blurb to get a book down to a suitable price that's affordable for resale for what I wanted. So that's why I didn't go with Blurb. I don't know how you pronounce it, if it's Mixham, whatever. This is who I found. One thing that I liked was usability of website. I could go and put on all my parameters that they offer, and it would give me a grand total. I could take that divided by 20 books or whatever, and I'd get my per piece price, right? Quality's been awesome. Support was really good, even though I had to chat in. They fessed up to saying, we didn't trim your book right. I thought it was me. I was asking, what do I need to do to correct this issue? And they're like, actually, I think that's us. And I was like, well, I thought it was, but I thought it was something me, just in a knowledge-based thing. So they were probably the best for affordability, quality. Would I love to do edition 1? Yeah, if I fall into like $2,000 someday in a lump sum and I just can go blow it, then I'll go do an edition 1 book, because it's amazing the quality that they do from just the photos that I've seen, but not, it's not economical unless you've got some cash flow. I have seen a Blurb book though in person before. Now their quality is really good, but I think the book I saw was their trade book or something. It was very nice. I was actually pretty impressed with it, but it's not one that I would probably go to and then run as a straight like printer of books. So I like the middle one. You can literally spend days and weeks and months researching book printers, right? The one I'll show you some stuff here in a minute with the company that I ended up going with. So here's right here. These are all the options they offer. Now, when you look at these, if you click on like one of these is cookbooks, and one's a biography book and baby photo book. Now, what this is when you click this on their website, it will show you kind of what they recommend as a kind of a standard setup for that book. What they're recommending for paper types and all that. So this is what I liked about it, is I didn't have to think about much. I could get what I wanted and then tweak it from there, which was super nice. But then at the same time, they offer a lot of things. Like even outside of books, they do a lot of marketing materials too. But here's their online price calculator. Like you can see all these things like soft cover, hardcover, how many pages, is it landscape? There's a whole litany of sizes. And then you can check your paper types and then how many pages you think it's going to be. And you want glossy or matte cover. And as you do all this, it adds it up. And there's the in paper, that little dark color there. They have a list of them, and it's weird. Every color changes the price except white or black, but there's a million different things. Like you can get totally like crazy into this book, but if you're going to do a hardcover book, you're probably looking at an average cost of $45 a unit, or sorry, like $35 a unit. You can bring it down a little bit, but then at the same time, their soft cover books, I think at about 180 pages still run about $20. So you'd really have to cut your pages down. If you did about a 96-page book, it'd be pretty affordable. So let's talk about research. I spent a lot of time at Barnes and Nobles, as you can see. So I, like with anything, I research, I'll look at photos before I went to Route 66, right? To kind of get ideas of where I wanted to go. I did the same thing with layout. I'm not a graphic designer by trade. I get lucky sometimes to make things look okay. So I just went through and like, what do I like about this book? And I took some pictures and I just came up with different ideas on maybe how to lay things out. And some of these worked, some of them didn't. You know, could I do the middle one with that yellow sheet of paper? Yeah, I could have them printed it yellow kind of thing. You know, this is just showing how the book laid out. Plus, it gave me a lot of idea of how I should lay my book out in a sense. Because when I did this one, I didn't have to think about it. So, I mean, I had the cover. You go in, and it's pretty much the cover again without the photo. You go in, and then there's like all rights reserved, ISBN, copyright me and the year, and blah 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 blah, right? And then the contents page, and then my writing that I had to do, the dedication, the introduction, and blah blah blah, right? You know, I didn't do that much with the Route 66 book. It's I put a couple quotes in there that I liked about Route 66. Put kind of a description of the American dream because that's how and you can read through the book thing, and then you're on to pictures. But this is when I was researching, I had to get ideas, right, of what I wanted to do and how I wanted to lay things out. Then it came into the internal pages, right? So I love, Wes Anderson. So there's a book called Accidentally Wes Anderson. So if I remember the story right, Becky says, do you have a minimum order for books through these places, or can you do just one book? Just one. So the more you order, the lower the price. My Route 66 book came in one copy, hardcover, 192 pages, nothing real fancy. One copy is about 76 bucks. So, you know, but that's at 180 something pages too. So if you got down to the 90s ish, or less, then you'd be in a lot better place. So Accidentally Wes Anderson was, I believe, a Instagram page that was started that people were, somebody was resharing photos that looked like Wes Anderson's work in movies, right? The way he shot, the toning. And then it became this really big face, Diane says, who did you use? I used the middle one, that MIXAM company. So they ended up coming up with a book. It's like super thick, you know, and this is kind of the vibe. Like I like this book a lot. Like I like the layout because it kind of reminded me of kind of the photos I shot when it come down to the toning part. So I looked at this one a lot, you know. So I'm looking at the interior of the book, photo layout. Well, then I'm looking at covers. Like, what do I want for a back cover? You know, then I was looking at a square book. There's not a lot of square books out there. How are they laying out a square cover kind of thing? You know, so a lot of this is just research of looking, Googling photos, square photo book, layout, book designs, things like that. I laid my book out in Canva and then exported them all as high quality PDFs and then put them into the printer software. And it worked a lot easier because to me, I work in Canva a lot for like Facebook post things. It's just easier. I know it. It's not, you know, if I would have had InDesign from Photoshop, then from Adobe, I could probably like come up with a few things from years ago when I used it way back when in like mid 2000s. But it's one of those, it's just researching and seeing, because sometimes I would lay it out and then I'd go look at like, I like this or I like that, and then I go and tweak it a little bit. So it's just finding inspiration all over on the research side, you know. And then here, looking at the author page, you know, they shall have a full spread there. So spread is like the 2 pages, and the whole right of the spread is literally a picture of the author and then bio on the left. You know, this picture on the left is a picture of a waterfall of I think this is Wilderness America. It says it was like a bunch of like, I think, national park photos. I like this. I used this idea in my book where I had a photo with a quote where the words on this page. So it's, you know, it's just going through and seeing what you like, don't like, and what you need to do from there. Now, I will say, if you're looking to do a photo book along the lines of maybe make a little bit of money, or if you do an event kind of thing and you want to sell it, it seems like a lot of these printers who are photo printers who are doing like the senior picture prints, like McKenna, all those guys, those are pretty expensive books in the end, because, you know, they're racking up the price. The end user, or sorry, not the end user, the middleman or us photographers do, because, right, it's more of a portrait thing. You can charge a little bit more for that, you know. Those those guys never seem to come out to be affordable for anything, unless you want a really nice quality photo book just for yourself. Then more power to you, go there. So then I even started looking at the spine of the book. How are they laying out the spines of the book and all that stuff? Because I had to do that as well. And I had to put all this stuff together. So for mine, I put, as all books have, down the spine, the title. I put a little Route 66 sign at the top and, make it something a little bit different. So it's things like that. So there's lots of moving parts. Let's talk about how you lay out a book. So I laid it out in Canva. I started out doing this. All the photos that I took on the trip, I printed out just as black and white on my laser printer and decided to cut them out and just kind of lay them side by side and just kind of shift them around. I wasn't going to start gluing them on into spreads, and that was going to take too much time. So I cut them out, laid them out, because then I can move it around. If I had the extra dough, I would have printed them out as square. And then hung them up all on the wall and then moved them around and lay out and stuff. But this was cheaper because even a crappy Snapfish print was still almost $200 to print all the photos that I was thinking about putting in. And I wasn't going to spend that and just throw them in the garbage. But, when it comes to layout, there's a million ways you can do it. But, I just printed them straight from Lightroom as a contact sheet and then cut them out from there and shifted them around on the table. Come on. Thing is so slow today. There we are. So let's talk about flow. This is my biggest concern on the book, and I'll show you some examples. So all these photos you'll see are in the book in the layout. I may have switched them around, but when I was trying to come up with flow, I want photos to match, right? These two go together. It's the same building. It's a detail shot. It's a little wider shot, right? Does it matter which side of the page they're on? No, not really. But they match. That's the thing is you want as you're going through a book to kind of have a flow. I'll show you some examples here in a minute of it flows and then it does it and photos, do they match kind of thing. It's just having that's when I was shooting. That's why you should always be shooting wide shots and tight shots and detailed shots and the whole grand scene shots, because if you're going to lay something out, you want a lot of different shots so you don't do these two photos and realize, nah, I don't want them. Then you only have two photos. So it's things like that. And also when you're kind of going through, again, like this, two photos that match. It's the same building. It's the different side, right? So I've got probably 50 or 60 different photos of this Steak and Shake. I went through and found the ones I liked. And the one on the left, I had another picture where it was more straight on. I didn't like that one as much. Maybe I did use that one for the book, but it's just trying to find photos that just kind of, same kind of look and feel. And it's even your post-processing, right? So this one, Buck Adams, that's the big former muffler man, now the cosmic cowboy, right? And then I've got all you can even see all the old school toys and then it even matches him, right? So they're, completely different photos, but the theme is still there, right? It's the same subject matter. It's the detail shots through the window of the place. So it's things like that you have to think about. How is the book going to flow? Because that's what's going to keep you kind of going through the book. When you kind of break that flow and then you're just this is nice, you kind of just start flipping. Now here, two different photos, right? But it's color. Your flow can be color too. So this is the Sun and Sand. Yeah, Sun and Sand Motel. That's the sign across the highway or the road. This is the Mercedes-Benz, but look at it. It's the same color. Blues, oranges. So again, two different subject matters, really, a sign versus a vehicle, but it's the color that starts to match. So it's one of those that it doesn't always have to be, like the two Steak and Shake images, right? That are the exact same thing. It's just different angles or, detail shot versus a, more wider shot per se. So you can look at, it can be color too. It doesn't have to necessarily be the whole subject matter. Now let's talk about this flow, right? In the world of Sesame Street, One thing doesn't look like the other, right? So same subject, different time, right? Um, the one to the left is more that lower contrast, more muted color, where the one on the right, it's dark, it's day and daytime, right? This to me doesn't flow as well. Um, because the other thing too, look at our ratio, square versus more that 3:2 kind of, ratio, right? So that kind of throws it off. See how it seems a little bit imbalanced compared to the others where they're all the same. There's some photos that I liked a lot that I wanted to put in the book, but they were 16 by 9 and then square. So it'd been square and then weird. It would have been weird. And I'm not saying that that can't work. It can. But for me, I had a very vivid vision of this book and how do we lay it out, right? That we're going to square all the way through. I didn't want anything different. I didn't want this kind of look, right? So I could be going through a book and looking at pictures, and then I get to this and it kind of like is that pothole in the road you hit. So again, picture on the right, I really love. I like the color, the blue, kind of that blue hour, and it's nighttime and all that, but it just doesn't match. So no matter how much you love the photo, if it doesn't flow well, then you just have to kind of be done with it. Come on. Try. There we are. So this one I actually have in the book flipped around, right? It's a garage and it's gas station, right? So they flow well together. I actually have them, I think, in the book the opposite way, which I like a little bit better. Come on. But now look at this, right? They do flow together a little bit now because look at our processing. It's the same colors, same everything. To me, this flows a little bit better, even though the ratio is different. One's square, one's not. But again, this seems like it matches a little bit better. But again, you don't want to go through and have all these images that look alike in the post-processing away and then have these two more differently processed photos. Again, we even are tying it together with the Arcadia Lodge. I really like this hotel. It was kind of a rundown pit anymore, it looks like, unfortunately. But if somebody had some money, it'd be really cool. But again, I'm matching with Arcadia on the building to the sign. It's things like that. It's just part of that storytelling. I'm about done showing flow here. We're getting a little, well, I guess we're at 8:40. So the other thing too is the challenges of a book, culling images. I had to go down from 3,100 photos and start finding things that I liked. And then I had way too many photos. And then I had to start saying, okay, is this actually solid image and good, or is it just because I like it? And I had to start doing that. Time is a challenge because it's a lot of time to put things together in a way, especially if your blueprint isn't together real well. Design, that's probably the biggest challenge if you're not a designer or have an eye for design or layout kind of thing. I can thank Mr. Ted Mallory, my yearbook instructor, to kind of at least help me out a little bit in life when he taught me a few things then. Cost is always going to be a challenge. You want to have more pages, you want to have more coolness, like spot foil and spot UV, where part of the book might be shiny and the other part's not, but then that adds cost. And it's hard to tell a story sometimes too with a limited amount of images. And then flow is very hard too. So these are kind of like the challenges I ran into. When you run into this roadblock or this hiccupy stopping point, sometimes you just got to let the project sit a while and then come back. So, but again, those are kind of like that kind of roughness and the challenges of the whole process. So we're getting pretty close to wrapping up here. So again, under challenges, so this is the software snippet that I did. So you will see a lot of this where there's lines and what does this mean, and all these lines, and there's safe space and terminology, bleed, crop marks, DPI, safe area, trim size, anything that little, I think it's a little yellow box, anything inside that safe. You'll see where the line here and the line here in the corner, if you draw a solid line here and a solid line that way, that's your trim. That's where they're going to trim them. So, excuse me. So that's one of those things too. So this is where you have to rely on the people who do the printing to say what, huh? They will definitely tell you if you're wrong. So quick recap before we get to the end. There's always going to be challenges. It's not going to be easy. You just have to give it time. You have to look at it. A lot of times do a design or of a cover and the back cover or whatever, or the inner pages, and leave it for a while and then come back and look at it. Is it worth it? Yes, I think it is, because it starts to make you think very critical about your images, and not just because I like them and they're pretty. You know, you start to think about more like, this is stuff I'm going to put in more and show people. So this is probably stuff that I need to think through better, thought process. And again, you got to have that solid layout, that blueprint, right? So don't skip, because the better foundation you start out with, the easier this project's going to be. And then take your time. Don't rush it, because we can be all excited about, photos and getting it out and getting a print, and then we get it and we're like, I wish I would have waited. So, but I could have talked about books all night long, but let's talk about something new. So some of you may be there, some of you may not be. Come on, computer, upload. There we are. The Photographer's Lounge. So this is a new Facebook group that I started tied to the Justin Tedford Fine Art Group. I started this last year with a small group of people on a separate outside of Facebook world, but it was kind of costly for the platform. It was a platform more based off to charge people to get in, and I didn't want to do that. But so if you go to Facebook and type in the Photographer's Lounge, you can click it. I'm going to do photo challenges in there for you to do, and then post photos there, introduce yourself, blog posts, whole bunch of stuff. So if it's something you're interested in, it's it's going to be a community-based thing where we can all go together and post photos, ask questions, that kind of stuff. So super excited for that as I go through. This Sunday, I'll post the first photo challenge. I put a poll up there, and you can just pick a number, and then that number is tied to a photo challenge. One of the other things I've already done this week is I've asked, what's your biggest challenge in photographing? I've got a lot of interesting answers. It's probably been the most interacted post, which is super cool. I've been reading through all those and trying to comment on everything and kind of get, that might be kind of a good sense for future lives and things like that. So as we go into lives, there's some changes. So tonight is the last live for late night exposures, but it's not going away. It's just a name change. So I started this last year, so I'm just going to call it Frame by Frame from the Photographer's Lounge, right? So it's still going to go live to YouTube and all that stuff, but I just wanted to freshen it up a little bit. I don't know. The other thing was kind of stale, old. I don't know what you want to call it, but I thought I'd change it up because I'm trying to brand more things to the Photographer's Lounge. So I had a lot of things. My blog's been changed to the Photographer's Notebook, things like that. So it's everything I had already designed last year, but I put lots of hours into that I dropped. I'm just trying to put this work to good use. So we'll still be around for lives, just a little bit different name. So coming up. So bam, look at that. First time in a long time that I've had everything pre-planned. So no longer late night exposures. It's frame by frame, right? So next week, Robin is on here. So on the show tonight, he made a comment. So I met Robin electronically, chatting through Facebook and stuff. But Trent Foltz, everybody knows, well, most people know Trent. I've talked about here. He's been on the show once, and he in the comments here every once in a while. He's a guy you got to look at Robin's work. So we're going to talk about crafting visual narratives next week, the art of project-based photography. So I'm super excited because I love looking at his stuff as he travels around, and we'll be excited to hear about all his adventures and how he approaches his photography based on projects. Then the tried and true oldie but a goodie, Corey Hapgood, right? Mr. Corey told me, he goes, you should do one. It's like travel things, right? Like things you take on trips. So I'm going to do from lens to luggage. So it's a lot of little tips, tricks, probably things that I do to travel, and how I don't know quite what it will be, but lots of little things. So thank you, Corey, for that one. And these are all back to Thursday night now. So, and then we're going to talk about on June 20th, finding your mode. So it's exploring camera modes beyond auto versus manual. Because I think in the photo world of YouTube and articles that you read, everybody says, get off auto, go to manual. But there's a lot in between auto and manual. There's aperture priority and shutter priority. So we'll talk about those and kind of how you can use them and go from there. And then somebody brought this up a long time, or I came up with this, I don't know, idea ages ago to do, this one's going to be called Sharper Visions. So we're going to delve into focus stacking. So if you're not familiar with focus stacking, a lot of cameras have it now. If you ever had that problem where you want everything in focus from foreground to background, you could do hyperfocal distance if you wish. And that's a tongue twister and a headache in itself sometimes. But I'll talk about the benefits and kind of some things you can do with hyperfocal distance and how to set the camera up and shoot it. Or sorry, not hyperfocal distance. Focus stacking. So you can take 5 or 6 photos, put them together, and get one tack sharp image from foreground to background. So that'll be super cool. So if you guys have any ideas of shows for the future for July, let me know. I've got clipboard over here hanging on the wall with some stuff, and it's one of those that got ideas, but I don't know if anybody's interested in that, right? I got a lot of stuff for a blog post, and that was my goal this year, and it's May, and I haven't written one. Well, I wrote one, so no, somebody's out my front door, I guess. So that is what's coming up. And then we're at the end. So thank you as always. So thank you for showing up. And we're averaging about 10 or so, 10 on the thing. So a couple things as we wrap up. If you could share the show with other photo friends, that would be awesome. I'd like to engage more people. If you love the show, you're more than welcome. It would be great if you could go over to my Facebook page, leave a review just on the reviews and say, hey, lives, whatever you want to put. I don't care. That helps things. Share it with your friends. Well, I already mentioned that. And then you have nothing to lose by going over to Facebook and joining the Photographer's Lounge. It's all nothing, right? Kind of thing. I've got somewhere in my office, I've got so much papers and crap around here. I'm thinking about doing a Patreon account. That's been on my list for a long time. I don't know. That's a pay-to-play game kind of thing. But I got to figure out what I'm going to offer for $5 subscription a month or something, right? So thought about doing different levels, 5, 10, and 20, and then whatever subscription thing a month, cancel anytime thing that you can have one-on-ones or one image critique a month or whatever. I don't know. I got to figure out ideas. Who knows when that comes around. We all know I have lots of ideas, but no, go out to the Photographer's Lounge, go click it, join it, visit it, introduce yourself, post a photo, things like that. So we'll be doing a lot of things. I think I also want to tie to the Photographer's Lounge a couple meetups this summer that are free, that we can go out. So, thank you, Paul. Paul says awesome show. Thanks. So yeah, so go out, leave those reviews, go out to the Photographer's Lounge if you haven't already, at least check it out. But that is all I have for this evening. Maybe next week we'll have a different background. I have some ideas in the works, but I don't want to do it. It's work, but I should. So yeah, so I got to hang up that fancy new sign too, and trying to get things all rigged up. It must be my ADHD thing. I really like to switch things around in my office. So I need a bigger office now. So I got so much. I got if everybody ever talked to my old boss Dave Johnson, he would always say, we got 50 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound sack at the store. So same thing here. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Connie, Barbara. Thank you. You are welcome. So I will let everybody go. It's almost 9. Questions, comments, all that good stuff, let me know. So I will see you all next week, and we will hang out with Robin for an hour or more.